stop this thing we're doing then. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to have to find some other way to get where I'm supposed to be.
Let's start with the accent. Love the accent.
That was so weird hearing that.
Weird because why? Because it was hard work to capture it, or what?
Oh, just this. I mean, I feel so departed from that already because that was like last year that it's strange hearing it. But yeah, I did. I had to work on it. I watched lots of Sissy Spacek films actually because she was from Texas and she does that kind of, she has this lovely subtle gravelly voice. Or I listen to loads of people. There's this website called the International Dialect Archive where you can be really super specific about where and when you're listening from. You even know the educational background of who you're listening to.
And you just go through that and you listen to it again and again.
Try and listen to get as specific to Bonnie as possible and listen and repeat.
I remember talking to John Colshaw once and he was saying when he was doing his, I know it's not an impression, but when he's doing his impressions, he has like trigger words that if he feels he's losing it at all, he goes back to those and they fire him off on the right line again. Did you have that sort of thing with the accent?
Yeah, I in fact I had a poem that I can't remember who it was by, just to help me with my R's. But I do every time I do an accent and then I have to revisit the accent later, years down the line for something else. There always seems to be a line from last time I did it that kind of triggers it back.
And how difficult, the accent obviously you nailed, but how difficult was the character to get your head round? Because historically people are unsure about what sort of person she really was, Bonnie Parker.
Yeah, I mean, I love the scripts because she was such a strong, sassy, like ambitious, like driving force to the story. But then it wasn't until I started doing a bit of research and reading her poetry and her diaries and her love letters that you can still access amazingly, that I kind of heard this lost little vulnerable voice, like quite a young little girl. And so it was interesting trying to add a bit of that vulnerability into her kind of sassiness. Which
is a bit different to the way that famously Faye Dunaway played Bonnie, what was it, in the 60s? Because, I mean, I was reading this afternoon, she was described as playing with a sort of a worldly sexuality, if that makes sense to you, but far more brazen, really if you like. Yeah.
Cool and collected about the way Faye Dunaway played it, whereas the Bonnie in our scripts is almost a bit more like psychotic, actually, in bits.
Did you have somebody in mind when you...
No, maybe just lots of different people for different bits. But I mean, it's an amazing part to be able to play, having that... you know, Bonnie has panic attacks and she gets to shoot guns and she gets to be kind of putting on this character of the super sexy gangster. And so it's just kind of a dream for an actor to just go in and play all of these things in one project.
Do you think she was as violent as we sort of feel that she may have been?
No, probably not.
No.
I mean, I suppose. Well, my favourite biography that I read was written by her mom. So her Emma Parker's not going to, paint her daughter in this kind of villainous way, I suppose. But I guess everything that I've read about her really did sort of put her in Clyde's shadow, I guess. But it's just far more interesting to have a TV show that's being driven by the girl and driven by the woman, and having the woman as the kind of strong driving force of it. And so I prefer to stay true to the script than what I think the real Bonnie might have been.
What about the time on the run? Because there was these 2 years where over the course of those 2 years they killed 13 people, or it's believed they killed 13 people, and it came to a very gruesome end, didn't it? Because the pair of them were shot over 50 times in a car after being someone had dobbed them in to protect his son. Is that the case? And then the 6 police officers found them in the car and shot them over 50 times, and they never fired a gun, did they, in that time?
Exactly. They were executed basically on the road. I think Clyde was shot like 49 times and Bonnie 57 or something ridiculous like that.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, and I did read somewhere that they both had like half-eaten burgers in their laps when they died as well. And Bonnie had a packet of cigarettes in her laps, like really halfway through.
That's not a nice way to
get. Yeah, no, exactly.
Do you, from what you've sort of investigated, you've mentioned sort of reading her love letters and really trying to get a handle on who she was and what she did, and her relationship with her mother was quite an interesting part of her character.
Really strong and really interesting, actually. There's reading some of her letters, and she got married really super young when she was like 15 or 16 to first boyfriend before Clyde, not the first proper love. And she was so needy for her mum. She'd cry for her mum so much that even though she only lived down the road from her mum, she made her husband move in with her mum so that she could be with her so much. And that's sort of why Bonnie and Clyde stuck around Texas so much. I mean, they were inevitably going to be caught up with in the end because there were so many police after them. But rather than, flying off to Mexico or something, they stuck around because they wanted to be near their families, because there was that bond that was so strong that just kept bringing them back to Texas.
You've obviously delved rather deep into her character. Do you feel you know why she and they did what they did?
I think certainly know why they do in our miniseries. For Clyde, it was more of a revenge against the establishment, because he'd experienced life in prison farms, and he'd been sexually abused, and that was really when he, I think someone said that he went in a young boy and came out like a snake, through his experiences in prison. And for Bonnie, it was just, she was quite an intelligent, creative girl, and there was no outlet for that in Dallas at the time. She could be a secretary or a waitress, and she yearned to be an actor or a writer, and I think this was her way of being recognised. She never made it as an actress, but she could make it as a
So you think
gangster.
she may have been happy to have stardom, but in a slightly different way?
Yeah, I mean, because back then, instead of having adverts before at the movie theatres, they had newsreel footage, which would sort of be a soap opera story.
So she was on the big screen.
Yeah. She was on the big screen as almost like the original reality TV star on this kind of painting a soap opera picture of her life on the run.
And we mentioned that Faye Dunaway famously played Bonnie Parker in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't you, that you're going to be compared to somebody like that, and your depiction of the character. Does that daunt you? Does that excite you?
No, not really. It doesn't daunt me, only because I'm kind of strangely selfish in that I'm doing what I want to do.
To be honest about it.
Yeah, I'm doing the Bonnie I want to do, and
you don't care what anyone else has done.
Well, I all right. I don't really mind that much what anyone else thinks. I hope people like it, but I did what I thought was fun. So people are always going to love Faye Dunaway, and I loved Faye Dunaway's version as well.
And how's it gone down in America?
Really well, actually. It was watched by nearly 10 million viewers, which is pretty big for over there, and the response has been great. I just came back from LA yesterday, so it's interesting.
And in America, is it the pair of them seen as almost sort of a cool couple, because it happened such a long time ago and you almost forget the violence and the 13 deaths, and because there's such a part of American history that they love to see a different depiction of it? I
think so, but I think that even at the time, particularly at the beginning of their life on the run, Bonnie and Clyde were iconicized by the public, because they were representing they were this young couple on the run that were representing this anti-establishment, almost Robin Hood figures.
Yeah.
They weren't the inaccessible Chicago gangsters. They were just these kids from Dallas, and I think that's particularly the reason that they managed to be on the run for so long, because no one would dob them in to the police, because everyone wanted Bonnie and Clyde to succeed until they committed so many murders, collateral damage, as we'd maybe call it, and that was only really when the public's view was switched.
I have a question for you from Anthony, because you also play Lucretia in the Borgias.
I do.
He wants to know why it was called off, and he wants the final series to come back.
I know, me too. I'd love to.
There are a lot of people quite miffed about this, aren't there? Because it was 2 series, and it was it 3?
Seasons,
it was always meant to be 4.
Yeah. So I was always looking forward to becoming Lucrezia, but I had to be Bonnie Parker instead, so that's fine.
And isn't it true that because there is such a clamour for that 4th series, that they're actually aren't they releasing an ebook to tell what the story was, but obviously it's too expensive to make? I
do believe that Neil Jordan has written 2 episodes, which he's releasing as an ebook, I think, with the DVD of the 3rd season, so that you can find out what would have happened. Well,
because this is when you look at your career, Holly, it seems to be that you disappear into a far-flung country for a long time to really get into these roles, and then you're only back. You say you turned up from LA yesterday. You only turn back in this country very infrequently. Do you enjoy that lifestyle, if you like?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's partly it's sort of addicted. I think that's addictive. I think that's kind of why a lot of us get the acting bug, because it's just this experiencing different places, different people, different countries, different parts. Different time periods, actually, for me.
Exactly, yeah. Playing Bonnie Parker. Just a reminder, it's on tonight at 9 o'clock.
It is.
On the Lifetime channel.
It is. First part tonight, 2 hours, and then next part next Thursday at 9.
Okay, well, brilliant to have you on 5 Live. Thank you very much. That's Holly, not Holiday. We're going to... Holiday, your official
you want, don't mind.
Holly Grainger, who is playing Bonnie Parker in Bonnie and Clyde. You can see part 1 tonight on the Lifetime channel at 9 o'clock. Thank you very much for coming
Thanks,
on.
Dan.
Between now and 4 o'clock, we're going to do Chart the Week after the news and sports. If you're a regular listener on a Thursday, Richard does it every single week. He goes through the top 5 stories of the week with 2 eminent journalists. I shall introduce those eminent journalists to you very shortly. But right now, it's time for the news and sport on 5 Live. Steve Wyeth is stretching off in the